Good evening, everybody. Now I've made it, we'll start. Item number 1, announcements. As everybody in the room is aware of the fire drill, I don't suppose we need to go through that. So we'll move on to item number 2, apologies. Other than those listed, Councillor Phillips and Councillor Downs, is anybody aware of any other apologies? Item number 3, the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes, and is everybody happy if I sign them? Item number 4, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any interest that they need to declare? Councillor Kennett.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just to let everyone know, my employer has changed. I'm now employed by U Energy Retail Limited. It's not on here, so I just thought the minutes should reflect that. Thank you.
Can we make a note of that? Thank you. Item number 5, public consultation. I'm aware that Councillor Condacore wants to speak on items 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So we will move forward to item number 6, which is the follow-up from the review briefing. And I'll hand over to Linda.
Thank you, Chair. At the last Audit Committee meeting, I presented my internal audit annual report, which provided a summary of the work that the audit team had completed during 2022-23. And there were 3 areas where we actually gave a limited assurance. And I promised committee members that we just started a follow-up review of those 3 areas, and I promised a further report on the findings of those follow-up reviews. The 3 areas were the use of fuel cards, the use of corporate credit cards, and housing repairs stock control. With the use of fuel cards, that follow-up review is still ongoing. The majority of fuel cards are directly allocated to council vehicles, to the registration number of vehicles. So those cards are quite well controlled because you can see how much fuel is being put in each vehicle. You can monitor miles per gallon, follow up any queries or reviews. But we do have what we call wild cards. And these are issued in certain circumstances, such as fueling hire vehicles, because we don't allocate a specific fuel card to those. We do purchase fuel using jerry cans, and that fuel is used in equipment, mainly at the depot. And occasionally, original cards are mislaid. So if drivers need to fuel vehicles, they do use a wild card. We're quite happy now that there are controls over the issue of the wild cards, and there is a record of who they're being issued to, when they're being issued, and when they're being returned. And there is now a control over the receipts of the use of fuel cards on when wild cards are used. But we have got a couple of discrepancies on receipts that haven't been picked up by this management review. So we are doing a little bit of additional work in that area. So once that additional work's completed, I'm more than happy to bring either a further report to this committee at the next meeting, which is in January, or issue a briefing note with the findings from that additional work. On corporate credit cards, again, we're pleased to note that there were 7 recommendations made, 6 have been implemented. Budget holders, we're quite happy now that they have a much tighter control over the use of credit cards in their areas of responsibility. The one recommendation outstanding is fairly low priority. It's low priority 3, and that's looking at alternative ways of taxing council vehicles, and that may reduce the need to use credit cards. So that's still ongoing. We've also done some additional testing in this area, and we've looked at a sample of 33 credit card transactions. We've looked at the the information that's been recorded against the receipts in each transaction. We've looked at who's approved it, to make sure that it's been approved either by the budget holder or, in their absence, another appropriate senior officer, and to ensure that card holders are not self-approving their transactions. And we are pleased to report that the outcome of this additional work was sound, and we had no concerns at all. So in light of all of this, we've now increased our overall opinion to satisfactory from limited. It's satisfactory purely because of the one ongoing low priority 3 recommendation, and that's the only reason why it's not a significant assurance. The other area is housing repairs stock control. There were 2 key areas of concern. One was the accountability of stock being held on the vans, because our workmen were going to Bradford's, they were ordering stock as and when they required it, they were putting it on the van, and there was no overall control over it. But now there's a new procedure that's been introduced. Stock requirements are identified on a Friday based on the following week's works orders. Those orders are then raised on a Monday, collected into stores on Tuesday, and loaded onto the vans. So there's a lot more control over that area. And it also means that we're using the e-buy system. So there's a lot more reporting and accountability because the e-buy system is being used rather than direct purchasing. The second key area of concern was the level of unused stock that was being stored in the compound at the depot. Our contract with Bradford's allows us to return unused items, but this clause wasn't being utilised, and they have now set up a meeting with Bradford's to agree a returns process. So that process is now going to be introduced. So again, our overall opinion has been increased to satisfactory from limited, purely because although they've set up a meeting, it hasn't been agreed yet what the returns process, how it will actually work. And I think that's all I'd like to say, so I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
No problem. Councillor Condacor, I believe you want to speak.
Thank you, Linda. I'm very croaky, so apologies if I need to take a sip of water. It's always really good, this work we get done with our internal auditors. One thing that'd be useful to know is the scale of these things, because we get these reports and we're looking at, say, the fuel cards, but is it like we spend £100,000 a year on fuel, or 10,000 or £1 million? Yeah, it'd be good to get some scales so we know how big the discrepancies are compared to the actual large sum of money overall. Secondly, I am always very concerned about things like fuel cards, and it'd be useful to know if they're able to be used anywhere or if it's just in the Nuneaton and Bedworth. If there's any analysis of people using fuel cards in Leicester or Birmingham or somewhere. And obviously as a council we could get better value if people shopped around for their fuel. Yeah, they're buying it at Asda or they're buying it some petrol station that's 10p a litre more. So I think in addition to seeing whether money's being wrongly used, a bit of stuff about value for money is useful. And on these stocks, I think it'd be really useful for the committee one day to go up and have a look at the depot. As a councillor, I've never been actually in the depot and seeing what's up there. But it does sound like every time there's new work, you get a new lot of plasterboard or a new lot of copper pipes, and we're not looking at using our leftover stock first. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Does any other member of the committee have any questions? Councillor Tromans.
Thank you, Chair. It's just comments, really, which is this was, very much what we were hoping to see. I think when Linda brought these items to the committee and we said, oh well, kind of what's the follow up on these 3 items in particular. 2 of them are recurring ones, but it's great. There's been some additional testing and measures put in place around the corporate credit cards, and now we have satisfactory assurance. And the housing stock control, the new system and controls in place there, particularly with the e-buy system, system. This is all good stuff. This is addressing very long-standing issues and making a real difference. And I very much welcome this update report. I would like to thank Linda for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tromans. I just have one question myself, which relates to the corporate credit cards. I understand that the only reason that it's been lifted to satisfactory is because of the low priority 3 recommendation. So do we have a time scale when that will be put, something will be done about that one, so that that assurance can be lifted?
I'm not sure of the timescale, Chair. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the actual timescale will be. It is being looked at, and it is in progress. They have already started looking at it, but I can't actually give a timescale, I'm afraid. Sorry.
That's okay. And I'm just going to ask the committee's opinion here. Linda's offered to come back with in January with us for a further update on the fuel cards. Would we prefer a briefing note? I don't think we need a full report. I think a briefing note with just that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
The committee's in agreement, Linda, that we're happy with a briefing note in January. But if you could try and find out a timescale for that low priority 3 recommendation as well, because it would be good to get that lifted from satisfactory up another level.
Yeah, more than happy to do that, Chair.
Any further questions? In that case, then, the recommendation is that we note the report. Is everybody happy to note this report? That's carried. We'll move on to item number 7, and thank you for your time tonight, Linda.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Wahida.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is the annual review report for the review of the Register of Members' Interests and Gifts and Hospitality Register for 2022-2023. Chair, this is, as per the report, there is a requirement for the registers to be kept for the members' interests under the Localism Act 2011, and also for the Gifts and Hospitality, which was a recommendation from the Committee in Standards on Public Life. Chair, both reports, the members' interest are available on the website, and there's also a hard copy available today for inspection, should anybody wish to look at that. And the Gifts and Hospitality is attached at Appendix A. Both reports are for review and for any comments from the committee, Chair.
Councillor Condacor, I believe you wish to speak.
Not really a lot to say, but I always do think there's actually not a lot of corporate gifts and hospitality, which is a good thing in some ways. But we still also record some things like £5 mugs, which I think might be something we don't need to do. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? In that case then, is the committee happy to follow the recommendations in the report? That's carried. We will move on. Item number 8. Any other items? Do you wish to speak on this, Councillor Condacor? Okay. In that case then, we shall move on to the exclusion of the public and press, which I'm quite happy to move from the chair. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Kenner. All those in favour? Can we stop the live stream, please? If you really want to.
I would just like to say it is a good idea, and they do it at the county sometimes, to have a short précis of what things are in the public domain, and then have a private session for all the bits about staff affected or commercial interests. And I think it's regrettable that we keep it so secret. Thank you, Chair.
Happy for you to put that in a suggestion, and we'll have a look at it.